You know, every time you tap your card, there's this invisible, high-stakes battle going on. It's AI versus a new kind of bank robber, and we're talking billions of dollars on the line. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and show you exactly how this war is being won.
Okay, let me ask you something. Have you ever been on vacation? You go to buy a little souvenir and bam, card declined. It is so frustrating, right? Well, until just a few years ago, there was a very specific and honestly a pretty broken reason why that happened all the time.
And the reason? It all comes down to this number. Believe it or not, just a few years back, a staggering 9 out of every 10 fraud alerts were false alarms. Think about that. For every one actual thief they caught, banks were accidentally blocking 9 of us, innocent customers, creating this huge, frustrating mess for absolutely everyone.
So yeah, this wasn't just some minor inconvenience. It was a sign that the whole system was just completely at its breaking point. We're talking a full-blown crisis in the banking world.
And the scale of this problem? It was just immense. I mean, look at this. Back in 2018 alone, U.S. banks lost $2.8 billion to fraud. You see, our love for digital banking, it basically threw the doors wide open, and some very sophisticated criminals walked right on in.
And the scary part? The problem was actually speeding up. This quote here really captures the mood inside the industry at the time. Their old-school defenses weren't just failing, they were getting weaker and weaker by the day. Everyone knew they needed a totally new playbook.
All right, so what exactly was this failing old guard? I mean, why were their tools just so bad at this?
Well, the core problem was this huge mismatch. Think of it like this. The bank's defenses were like a big, strong brick wall, but it was static. It couldn't move. It was just a bunch of simple rules, stuff like flag any foreign transaction over $1,000. But the criminals, they weren't using a battering ram. They were like water, just flowing right around that wall with these clever, evolving tactics like synthetic identity fraud. They were literally creating fake people from scratch that looked totally legit to the bank's simple rulebook.
And this mismatch, it led to this incredibly slow, clunky process. An alert would pop up. Then it would just sit in this giant digital pile, waiting. Eventually, a human analyst would get to it. We're talking hours could go by before anything was done. And by then, a fraudster could have already emptied the account and vanished.
So what you ended up with was this massive needle in a haystack problem. Seriously, imagine your entire job is to find one tiny needle, but 90% of the haystack is made of fake needles that look exactly the same. The analysts were just getting totally burnt out, spending all their time clearing good transactions, and that made it dangerously easy for the real threats to slip right through.
But just as things were getting really bad, a new weapon entered the fight. And this changed everything. This was AI, a much, much smarter defense.
Now, this wasn't just, a slightly better rulebook. The big solution was something called agentic AI. And don't worry about the fancy term. The easiest way to think about it is like a team of super-fast digital detectives. They can look at millions of transactions all at once, spot weird behavior, and then act to stop the fraud instantly. All on their own, no human needed.
And the impact? It was immediate and it was dramatic. Just look at this comparison. The old systems, they had that insane 90+% false alarm rate we talked about. The new AI systems, they slashed that to under 50%. I mean, this was a total and complete game changer.
So how on earth did it work? Well, the secret wasn't creating one giant super brain. Nope. The systems that really succeeded worked more like a high-tech detective agency.
Okay, so this is what the tech folks call a multi-agent architecture. You've got an orchestrator who's basically the chief inspector, directing all the traffic. It sends the tricky cases to different specialists, like a forensics expert who's looking for patterns, a profiler who's analyzing behavior, and even an enforcer who decides the best way to shut things down.
And this chart here breaks it down even more. So you've got the orchestrator running the whole show, then you have these different specialists, and each one is an expert in a very specific kind of fraud. You've also got a monitor, which is like the watchdog, keeping an eye on how well everything's working, and finally, a compliance agent to make sure all the rules are being followed. It's a whole team.
And this, right here, this is where the real magic happened. See, it wasn't just about each of these agents doing its own little job. Because they were constantly sharing what they learned with each other, the system developed what's called emergent intelligence. It's kind of like a rookie detective learning from a seasoned pro on every single case. The whole system got smarter together, and it evolved way faster than any single part could on its own.
Okay, so the big question. Did it actually work? For the banks that poured millions of dollars into this new tech, what was the ultimate payoff?
Well, first off, the return on their investment was just astonishingly fast. We're talking a typical payback period for these huge AI projects of just 12 to 18 months. Now, in the world of big corporate tech, that is absolutely lightning quick.
Okay, now here's the number that the folks in the corner offices really cared about. Banks, like Danske Bank, for example, saw their actual fraud exposure. So the actual amount of money they were losing dropped by a massive 50%. Half.
And get this, at the same time they were cutting their losses, they also managed a 60% drop in those super annoying false alarms. So think about it. They were catching more bad guys while bothering way fewer customers. It was the absolute perfect win-win.
And this quote right here, it really sums up the long-term impact. This wasn't just some one-time fix. Because this AI learns from every single transaction, it creates what's called a durable competitive advantage. The banks that jumped on this early, they weren't just winning the fight today. They were building a defensive fortress that literally gets stronger with every passing minute, leaving their competitors way behind.
So all of this leaves us with one big final question. We've just seen how AI can outsmart these complex criminal networks to protect our entire financial system. So if it can do that for our banks, what can it protect next?